Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Whether you're single, dating, or no longer accepting applications, there's no ignoring the plethora of relationship, dating, and personal development content on social media, ranging from the likes of burgeoning influencers, licensed counselors, and just about any attention seeker with a mic and an opinion. And if you're anything like us, your social feeds are likely filled to the gills with commentary on the tropes of high-value men, modern-day women, betas, simps, Lizzos, city girls, aka bad bitches, table bringers, and why your soulmate may not exist today. But let's be real, navigating relationships and dating has always been challenging. Societal norms change, gender identities shift, and yes, there's no denying men are still from Mars and women are from, well, you can pretty much put any planet you like. But in this Reddit thread, TikTok world of intellectual and emotional fast food, you certainly have to watch what you eat. But no matter what school of thought you're attending, whether it's the testosterone-induced, hyper-masculine, and seemingly misogynistic vestiges of red pill mindset, or the street twerking, eyelash batting, OnlyFans banking university of bad bitches, when it comes to dating, there's one enigma that certainly supersedes all, and that is understanding the opposite sex. So in today's pod discussion, the fellows and I will challenge, reveal our opinions, and share everything we've learned and wish we knew about dating and relationships, modern day women, as well as the impact social media has on shaping westernized views on relationships and the opposite sex today. So Wagwan, are you there? What's good? It's your boy G Ransom, and you're tuning in to the world's most cultured podcast, dropping one for the culture and more right after we pay these tributes. And if you don't already know, feel free to follow us on Instagram at Jerk Jollof Collard Pod, and you will also have additional ways to reach us at the end of this episode. And as always, I am joined by none other than some of the world's most cultured men on the pod. We are Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens. And if you don't know, listen back to seasons 1 through 5 and you'll find out more. But just so you know who's on today's recording, I'm just going to give a couple shout outs to the homie D Black, Dre, and Francis. Welcome back, fellas. It is season 6. How are you guys feeling? Say what's good to the people and tell us what's going on in your world right now.
Yo, we're back.
It's really good.
Yes, sir. We are back like we never left.
Absolutely. So, like, what's new? We know we took a little bit of more extended hiatus this season, so we could do a little bit more planning. But you know, what's going on with you guys? How you guys feeling? I know the world is crazy right now. I mean, speaking of which, you know, I was in Philly for the Roots picnic. Shout out to Philly. And first time I ever went, and of course, everyone probably heard the news about the mass shooting that occurred there, and just knowing that I was just roughly 15 minutes away from where that took place, it's just, trying to keep higher spirits, but it's just saddening to know that what's happening in this country today is insane. It's insane, to say the least.
Man, I feel you, bro. It's scary out here. I know we talked about guns in, I think, season 1. I mean, I'm really considering maybe I need to get my license. I was opposing to guns, but with the recent news, it just makes you wonder and just think like, man, maybe it's time to really, protect yourself and your family. The world constantly changing around us, and I think we have to change with it sometimes. So.
Yeah, give you definitely a point for preparedness. And I think that's like one of the other topics you were looking to talk about as well, is just the impact of being a brother and concealing and carrying it as well, the impact that potentially has. But it is true. It's like right now, it seems as if it's a mix of both licensed and unlicensed, unlawful gun owners. And it's just, what do you do to protect yourself and your well-being? And of course, your families as well. If you have an extended family or a partner, you don't want to get caught out there. But I don't know if there's any other opinions on the matter.
No, I think for me, I think it's just, we just need to kind of have a collective kind of agreement on what the actual issue is. I think that we kind of take these examples and reference things that may not be pertinent to the conversation. I think if we can at least agree on what the actual problem is, then we can institute a mechanism to address the solution. I mean, to address the issue. But yeah, I feel like people are pointing at doors and saying that doors are the problem, and that kids need to wear armored blankets, and because they don't have armor. I mean, like, isn't that a band-aid to the problem? I mean, but you know, I know I'm not I don't close my ears to other people's perspective. I think it's important to hear everybody's perspective. But if we're not having the same conversation, it's hard to have a solution to it.
Yeah, I would say that, this, it's one of those things where, I don't want to say we're starting to become numb to it, but, it seems like whenever one happens and a bunch happen kind of right after another. I would say for me, kind of, this is the first time that there's been a school shooting since I've had my son. So that definitely kind of like hits a little bit different, not to say that I wasn't, really sad when I previously, when we had other school shootings, but I think it's just that much different now when you think about like being excited to see your kid go to school and, so all those, all that stuff is definitely kind of like, hit me in a different way. It's one of those things where I just, I really don't know, I try to be hopeful that things are going to change and that, the people who we put into Congress are going to kind of do what, we've elected them to do. But I just, at least right now, maybe I'm going to bring it down, but I'm just not feeling confident that, that everyone's going to kind of do what they're supposed to do. And I also just think that, maybe this is a different discussion, but I just don't know how willing people are going to be to give up their guns. I don't even know what the problem is. I know, Deep, like you said, finding what the problem is. I feel like there are so many problems. It is not just like a one thing, again, just me being super naive about it. It just seems like a lot of these happen with a same type of gun. And I don't know why regular people should have this gun. I know other people, maybe smarter people or people who kind of who love guns will say like, oh, well, they could just use a different type of gun. But I'm just like, okay, then let's just like not make it easier, right? Like, I just feel like we haven't done anything, right? So to me, it's kind of like we should at least make some step forward to change one thing. It just seems like whenever this happens, no real steps happen. So I know that, we're not going to get rid of guns tomorrow. Americans kind of love their guns, but I just wonder if there's some other, like, can we just do something about the AR-15s, right? Like, again, maybe there's other guns that could be used, but to me, it's just like, I saw some graphic where they literally just like listed down all the like mass shootings and all of them were AR-15s, right? So just in my head, I'm just like, why does anyone need those, right? You don't hunt with those things. You don't, there's no reason to have that gun, right? I know there are other people who are like, oh, I like to hunt, and I'm just like, you don't hunt with the AR-15, right? You hunt with hunt with a rifle. And I know maybe someone will say like, oh, that is a rifle, but you're not shooting, prey with it would destroy the meat, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like I haven't heard a good reason why someone needs one of those. And if you're one of those people who think that you're going to kind of protect yourself if something happens with the government, that's not going to protect you, right? Like, yeah. You're not going to be able to, you don't have enough guns to be a militia to do anything, right? Like, you're not stopping anyone from doing anything. So I can't understand why. I haven't heard a solid explanation on why people need these things. Again, maybe I'm just thinking realistic. I know we're not going to get rid of all guns.
The argument is because it's their right, and by law they're allowed to do so. And I think like the issue is really multifaceted as well. Like, to point out to Dre, to corroborate your point, the idea as well is not even just the legislature, because you think about the state of Georgia, for an example, they're going to push legislature that allows you to carry a weapon without a permit. So if the idea is that you can now conceal and carry without going through the paperwork and the proper channels, at that point, it's kind of like, okay, who are we really rooting for here? Is this to combat the amount of people that may have guns unlawfully and be on the streets? or is it for us this false sense of security? And so a part of it is the legislature, and then also, like you said, the people that we select and who are in Congress. Because let's be real, a lot of these politicians are probably receiving kickbacks from organizations like the NRA, where they actively lobby, and that's how they're able to get millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to contribute towards their campaigns and get the proper funding. So yeah, like to the point, it's very multifaceted. And once I saw, in my opinion, how Sandy Hook went down and not much changed, if we're willing to see children die, then to me this world kind of lost its hope, for the sake of humanity, if we're willing to allow children to die by the hands of gun violence. And the same thing that we saw with Robb Elementary in Texas, it's really just insane. And I can only really think about how traumatized that generation's going to be, growing up and having experienced that. But great points all around, fellas, and definitely great points. But our prayers out to everyone that's been impacted and affected, of course, and we pray that you all remain safe. So let's go ahead and jump into one of our first check-in questions before we get into the rep yours and stay on topic. Share the single worst piece of dating or relationship advice you've ever received. And Fran, you quickly unmuted, so I want you to go ahead and start that one off as our check-in question.
Oh, really? No, I was actually unmuted before, but I guess one thing that I would say is, if your girlfriend or one of your own boys told you just do you, when you just do you, it's like one of the worst advice you can give someone. Like if you have no substance to your feedback, and because I think that kind of preaches in a relationship, you are a team, and I think that attitude kind of focuses on individual, and it's really not a team. I guess for me, I don't think it's a team perspective, and it doesn't really lead to the overall goal of your relationship. So that would be like one of the worst. I mean, if one of my boys tell me that, I'm like, okay, thanks. Because that's really doesn't really solve any problem.
D-Black.
Yeah, for me, I would just say so many bad ones, but I think probably the worst one I would say is like if you show interest in someone, but you show it, I guess, too soon. Like, for example, like
don't text her right away.
Yeah, don't text her right away. You get the number, you gotta wait and do all that. Like, I absolutely hate all that stuff because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like relationships shouldn't be a game. I feel like, I'm glad that I'm not on the market. I don't gotta worry about that. But I do feel like even just observing through social media and all this stuff like that, it just feels like too much of a game. Like everybody's just trying to find the one up on the other person. Like, aha. It's almost like everybody's looking for that moment to say, aha, you like me. I got you. You like me. Like, so isn't that the
like
objective? Like, yeah, like everybody's trying to basically corral a bunch of sheep, simp sheep, or another term is like, oh, the starting lineup or your roster, or like, isn't the objective to find somebody? If the objective is to find somebody, why do you have to be so disingenuous with it? And so I feel like it's like, and that's funny because like those are the things that, when I was younger, that you was taught, like, hey, don't text her right away, or you're gonna show her that you like her. Isn't that, don't you want her to know you like her? You know what I mean? But anyway.
Yeah. That was mine as well. That whole like idea of, oh, you got, once you get her number, like, oh, you got to wait a couple days to call her, or, even talking to some of my younger friends, they're like, oh, I don't double text. So like if they texted someone and then they didn't respond, they won't text again, because it always has to be you text me, I text you back. So I'm like hearing them talk about this stuff, and I'm like, just text her if you want to talk to her, right? Like maybe she got busy. Like I'm like the, I'm like the old head in my, I guess, very similar to the dad of in some of my other group chats, my one group chat with the people who are like, I want to say they're probably like 10 years younger than me. But yeah, I'm just like always the old head, like, I'm like, why don't you just call her? If, like text her, like what's wrong with letting somebody know you like them, right? Like, isn't that like, I always like, and this is what I feel I'm annoyed at myself having to type this, but I'm like, it's cool to like somebody, right? I'm always telling them this. I'm like, it's cool to like be in a relationship, right? Like it's cool. Like it's not, you don't gotta play it like, I'm like, being lonely is not fun, right? Like there's nothing cool about, not being able to share stuff with a partner, right? And not to say that you have to be in a relationship to be happy. I don't want to say that, because I know there are people who are single and are happy, and you should be able to find happiness by yourself. But for the people I know, right, my friends, I know they want to be in relationships, and I'm like, stop playing this game. Like, if you like her, like, let her know, right? Like, why would
And
you?
if she don't like you, move on, man.
Yeah, and if somebody doesn't like that you're being open and you're communicating with them, I find it hard to believe that women, and again, I guess maybe for these type of conversations, we should probably always have a woman here, but I would assume that most women would be okay with a man being communicative to them, right? Like letting them know. I don't know, maybe I'm
about
wrong,
to get into
but
this
that's
modern
always been
day
my- that's
woman,
always been
bro.
my-
If there's such thing as
open, honest, let them
Yeah.
know. Like, I like you. I
I have
like you. I
a
want you.
question
I
on
like you. I
that.
want you.
So is there
and I want
something,
you.
is there such thing as
Boondocks.
being like maybe hopping in too soon? Because like it's actually because a guy made a video on this, and his point was, don't play the I'm not gonna reach out to you game, because you now place more focus on not reaching out to the person, on playing the game, as opposed to actually trying to build a rapport and like you said, be communicative and build an actual relationship, through communicating with the person. You're now focused on, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to make him wait. I'm going to make him wait. I'm going to make her wait. And it all becomes about the game and not so much about building, a relationship. But at the same time, is it possible to do it too much or too soon? So like, for instance, let's say you get the number, you met a girl, you get the number, and 5 minutes later, you're like, hey, what are you doing? What do you want to do tonight? What's going on? Like, there is kind of a way to ease in to actually beginning the conversation, because you don't want to look like you're desperate, like you got nothing going on, right? So it's kind of like what the guy said in the video as well, and I should, hopefully I'll be able to tag it and probably put it in the description for the video. He's like, hey, do your regular routine, get your day done, and when you have time, reach out to the person. It doesn't have to be 3 days later or a week later or playing the game, but don't let it don't obsess over that particular stage, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you exchange digits and nothing happens. You could reach out to the person, they never get back in touch with you, or they probably say, hey, I gave you my number because I wanted you to get away from me. So
oh man. No, actually, okay, talking about that. What about the notion that if a girl give it up on the first night, she's not a keeper? What about that advice? Like,
you talking about Lori Harvey and Michael B?
Look, man, I'll say this. I think people are adults, right? I think, I don't think there's any rules to that, right? Like, I don't think that necessarily because, you sleep with someone on the first date that you can't have a relationship that ultimately, ends up being forever, right? I don't believe in like hard, fast rules like that. I think it's really on the individual.
She's not for the street if she lets you
No,
smash
not
on the first night.
Maybe she just really enjoyed your company, right? Maybe she just, I think sometimes we also do this thing sometimes, not to bash men, right? But sometimes we do this thing where like, it's okay for us to want to have sex right away, but then if a woman wants to, it's deemed as like she's promiscuous or she's for the streets or whatever, but it's not necessarily deemed the same way if like a man wants to have sex. So to me, it's kind of like, why couldn't a woman want to have sex just because, right? Without there being any type of like, maybe there isn't no expectation of anything, right? Maybe she just wants to have sex, right? Like, I think sometimes we do this thing where we put this like, that only once a woman has sex she's gonna like fall in love with you, she's not gonna like and I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, and again maybe I just like have been hearing too much from my young crew, but I hear from them that like women will sleep with them and just be done with, you know what I mean? Like, it's very much like not like how it used to be. So I don't think it's a hard fast rule. I think it's really on the person and where you're at in the relationship.
So I'll ask my one question before I get to my worst piece of advice I ever received, but is it really a question of how soon or how many? Because like, would you feel differently if you were courting a young lady and then you found out that she slept with like probably 10 guys on the first night that she met them, but she wants to be committed to you? You know what I mean? So is it like, would that at all change your opinion on the person, or would it be like, you know what, she was going through the motions, she was young, she's liberated, she's free? So is it really a question of how soon or how many guys? Because then, I mean, some guys won't even talk to a woman if they found out, hey, she didn't sleep with them on the first night, but she got like 20 bodies on her. So now all of a sudden she's no longer, I guess, valuable.
I'm weird about this. I'll go quickly. I'm weird about this. I don't care about what you did before I was with you, right? Whatever you did before me is none of my business. Whatever I did before you is none of my business, unless we decide to share it or whatever. But I'm not big into the I guess counting or finding. I really don't want to know, to be honest with you. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I told my wife I'm a virgin. She was a virgin before she met me. I was a virgin before I met her. In my head, I feel like that's just kind of like a decent way to do it. I just think like that. At least for me, again, I'll speak for myself. I just think thinking about like your partner being with someone before you is a slippery slope for me personally. I just don't want to know anything about it. So again, as far as we're concerned, we're our first everything. I don't want to know that. So I've never been to if a woman kind of presents herself to be a good person or whatever she did before that, I don't really kind of put too much emphasis on, because I wouldn't want them to do that to me. I try to be really fair and equal with that kind of stuff, but.
See, Dre, I actually rock with you on that statement, with one exception. One exception. I absolutely agree, except if whatever you did before me carries itself into the relationship now.
That's fair.
So if you slept with some exes and you have all these ex-boyfriends or whatever, and they starting to show up and they knocking on my door, or we dealing with stuff like that, now we got a problem.
Yeah.
And then also, if you, it doesn't matter, it could be one partner, however many partners, but if you did something and you got something, you caught something, and now you still got that thing, I need to know about that. I don't really care about all the partners. I just need to know about I gotta know what you carrying.
I mean, to be fair though, I think disease is could be a thing of, I don't think it really equates to the number of partners you have.
That's what I'm trying to.
You could have sex with the first person and catch something. It's just the unfortunate truth.
Well,
but I do agree with Dre as well, because I mean, my wife and I, we don't really talk about like what each other like, even though we know some information about each other, but that's not a topic that we really spend too much time on. At least as far as like the number of people, But when you are single, you are kind of, checking things out, exploring the market. So I understand, but to be fair though, if the numbers is a little crazy though, if it's like within the same, maybe like within a month or of the time I met her, and it's like some guys that maybe she's in one of the rotation of guys that she's kind of figuring
this is my Wednesday dick. I got my Saturday.
Yo, that's real. That's real. When you are dating, I mean, like as a single man, before I figured out what I wanted to do, I had a couple pieces on the side, and allegedly, until you really figured out this is what I want and this is what I want to be with. But if the numbers is like crazy, then it's like, yo, I gotta like look at it again and just know, is this the kind of person I want to really spend more time with?
Let me ask you this: is there any, seriously, I don't even understand why we even put emphasis on this conversation, because there's literally no good that comes out of it. If they say a certain number, you're either gonna be like, huh, okay, or
you're lying.
Damn.
Yeah, or you're lying, right?
Yeah,
or you're you're only saying, I always hear that, right? It's always in the media, they're lying, right? Anytime I've ever seen one of those on the street interviews where they ask a woman how many times she slept with someone, they right away ask how many, and they always say that they're lying, right? They're like, oh, you're lying. You're add 5 to your number, right? Because you're lying or whatever. But I'll just say, if you are deciding to have sex with someone other than STDs, which everyone should be scared of, you also need to be scared of getting the person pregnant who you're with as well, right? If you're in a heterosexual relationship or whatever, right? To me, that would be even though I don't want to say that I'm not scared about getting I wasn't scared about getting STDs back then, but to me, getting someone pregnant was just as scary to me back then. So I made sure before I was,
especially as a man.
there's something that my father taught me, just if you're having sex with someone, there's always the potential that they're going to get pregnant, right? So that was always my filter when I was having sex with people. Was like, look, is it going to be like there could be a possibility, right? Things happen, right? Between condoms and those type of things. Sometimes those things don't work, right? They're not 100% effective.
Yeah, exactly. Cause excuse me, I was just testing my mic for a second, but it was just like, that's a great point, because I agree, Dre. Like, once you enter that arena, be prepared for the truth, and if you can't handle that, then don't even bother opening that can of worms. You might find out your girl was Mia Khalifa back there, got bodies after bodies, and it's like body yada yada yada. You don't want it, so don't open that can if you can't handle it. But
not the body yada yada.
Body yada yada.
I mean that conversation is, like, to Dre's point, it's unnecessary. Especially, like I said, the number of people you slept with in the past doesn't matter. But like, for me, the only thing that matters is the immediate, like, if that is something that you are struggling with at that moment when we're trying to figure things out, then that's, I think for me, that's when it's a little bit more concerning. But if it's like something you've done, in the past, or your college lifestyle or whatever, it is what it is.
Here's my bit of bad advice. You can change her, or you can change him. I would say, do not enter the relationship thinking that you can change the individual. They're not a car. They're not some custom piece of clothing. I think that, yes, people can improve and make, changes, or, they can improvise, they can adapt. But to think that you can make someone think differently than what they did, before they came in their relationship, I think that's a slippery slope to enter. Be prepared to accept the person for who they are, is my opinion. And then that should also aid in your selection. Like, every woman or every man you talk to isn't necessarily going to be the person for you. So be willing to go out there and play the field responsibly, safely, of course, with some honesty and communication. But, I wouldn't say go in thinking that you can change that person, or you got them on a lease and they're going to adapt over time. Like, sometimes what you see is in fact what you get. And if you don't like what you see, get out of that situation. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't think this is going to work, rather than ghosting the person, or regretting, feeling like you bought a lemon when you feel like, you had a Ferrari. So it's just like, definitely be mindful with your selections, and just be upright, be honest and straightforward.
Glenn, just a question. Are you talking about changing a hoe to a housewife, or what kind of change are you talking about?
Man, you can't change a hoe to a housewife, a hoe to a house husband. Like, man, it is what it is. And then it also applies to that context as well, So yeah, be careful, because you might get burned. You know what I mean? So
literally.
Yeah. Literally. Well, today's Rep Yours, before we jump into the bread of our conversation, modern day men and women of today may not always see eye to eye on relationship themes, but one thing I think we can all reach a unanimous decision on is that there's nothing that satisfies the soul more than a nice, hot, flaky, handcrafted Jamaican beef patty. With that said, this episode's Rep Yours is dedicated to YUPP, or YUP, acronym for Your Ultimate Patty Place, a brick and mortar fast casual eatery located in North New Jersey, and your one-stop shop for a variety of homemade Jamaican-inspired patties, ranging from spicy oxtail, beef, curried, and jerk chicken. You are transported instantly to the sunny isles of Jamaica in one bite. And I attest to that because I definitely support it. Shout out to all my Jamaicans, aka Francis. So if you're ever in New Jersey, be sure to check out
Love you
via their website, yourultimatepattyplace.com. Their address is 400 Irvington Avenue in South Orange, New Jersey, or follow them on Instagram at the Patty Pusher. Shout out to all the Jamaicans out there. All right, so let's jump into it again. You already heard our worst advice, so let's get into a couple of these next questions. Share one thing you wish you knew about women, or you think all men should know before committing to a long-term relationship. And I'm gonna start with Dre on this one, because I know you were like, I'm locking this one up. This one's going in the bag. I like you. I want you.
Yeah, I like you and I want you.
So tell us, like, what's one thing you think all men should know about women before committing?
Well, before committing to a long-term relationship, I definitely think it's kind of understanding what your partner's like goals are, right? So, you know, understanding if they want to get married, right? Some people don't want to get married, some people don't want to have kids. To me, I think before you get in a long-term relationship, I think it's good to kind of have a very good understanding of like, what are some of their, what are some of their goals, right? I think especially once you started dating someone, once you got past that initial like phase where everything is fun and you guys are, always having sex with each other, you guys, the fun, the honeymoon stage that they talk about, right? Once you get past that honeymoon stage and you start to really think about, long-term things, where do they want to live, right? You want to make sure you're not in a relationship with someone whose goal in 5 years is to move across the country if that's not what you want to do, right? So to me, I think it's kind of like, I think it's a little boring, but I think it's important to kind of make sure you understand like what that person's like long-term, short and long-term goals are, both kind of just them individually, as well as maybe, what they would be potentially looking for long-term. I've even heard some people talk about, and I thought this was really interesting, is that there's some married people who live separate, which is really interesting. Like, that's a really interesting idea that I've never heard of, but supposedly this is a thing for some people, that they actually have like separate apartments, or so maybe they live apart from each other for a couple of days out of the week, which I thought was really interesting. But you want to find if somebody wants to do that, right? So I think it's really just kind of just getting the very basics. You don't have to like by talking about these things. So men, don't get worried by you mentioning these things. It's not like the woman's going to hold you to it necessarily, but but just ask all those questions just so you know, right? Because maybe you don't want to. If somebody really wants to have kids and you don't want to have, to me, I think that's like I don't think that's something, to your point, Glenn, to your earlier thing, is as far as changing someone's mind. That may not be something that they want to change, or it may just be something where they're saying like, right now, I don't know, right? Maybe the I don't know is okay, but if they say I never want to have kids and you really want to have kids, maybe you need to really, think about that.
Facts. Well said.
Yeah, man. Actually, I think Dre, you took a lot of my points. And I agree with you. I think, before anything, you get into any relationship, you should definitely, especially when you get in serious. I mean, I understand now we're in this generation where people can kind of play and then there's seriousness. So it's like a dichotomy of those two things. But if you are going for the serious route, and that's where the word relationship comes in, you definitely got to make sure you have the same, core beliefs or foundations, and if you don't, you talk through those, because the things that you're thinking are, oh man, she's a baddie or he's a baddie and I ain't gotta worry about that, we can talk about that later, and then you end up talking about it and it becomes a big time issue and y'all break up. So get it out of the way, save yourself some time to work through those now. One thing I also wanted to add was, oh damn, I just lost it. I might have to come back. I actually just lost my thought.
No, it's all good. We'll come
Yeah.
back to you.
Yeah. Let me, you can come back, because I guess just to kind of go in a different direction here. I mean, one thing that I wish I knew about women is their conflict management, because as a man, we tend to be problem solvers, and our women counterparts, they actually just want us to listen. As a man, for me, I know I struggle with that. I still struggle with it now, even as a husband, because sometimes just learning how to listen to our wives and just let them get it out. And I always just kind of like already like trying to find problems like what, and just kind of learn how to like say, like use some keywords like what, she say what, no she didn't, just, and like it was funny because my pastor kind of talked about it, like actually not my actual pastor, but it was a guest pastor. He talked about man and the woman that loves them, and that was one of the things I actually kind of pointed out, just kind of how you have to actually show a level of interest. It's not really just kind of giving those key words to support your wife, but actually as showing genuine interest in the conversation, and really in that, and kind of really managing that really goes a long way versus always trying to I mean, not all women not looking for a superhero. I think sometimes they just want like someone they can chat with. So
Yeah, and actually, now that I actually remember what I was gonna say, so it actually ties all of this together because even in the premise of the conversation, we're talking about the modern day woman, right? So the approach to the modern day woman, and it's funny because you have this title, modern day woman, but that is so ambiguous. You know, there's no direction which you can't say, oh, this is a modern day woman, so this is what I expect, or this is what. So my point was just that not all women are the same. You know, that's the first thing that I would want to emphasize. You know, just know that not all women are the same.
Amen.
And just because you're a traditional kind of guy doesn't mean that she's going to be a traditional girl. You know, doesn't mean that and it's also so interesting because we get these seminars and, you know, even, you know, franchise, you know, even with, you know, your minister, you know, saying like, oh, make sure you listen and you add these ad libs and yeah, man, she a hoe. Yeah, that word like, but maybe you know, the girl that you're talking to, she don't want to talk to you about none of this. She may not be like to the part, she may not be one of those individuals that wants your feedback. Maybe she just wants to talk. Maybe she doesn't even want to talk. Maybe she wants to just hear more about you. Maybe she likes when you're in touch with your emotions. Maybe she doesn't like when you're in touch with your emotions. You know, every woman is so different. So you just have to approach each person, just, you know, be your genuine self, and then, you know, let's see how much of yourself vibes with that person, and that's where you really make that connection. But making an assumption that, you know, you got to open the door and do all this, like, it's gentlemanly to do those things, you know, that's what we say, but some women don't like that, you know, which is, you know, just something you got to keep in mind, you know.
Yeah, so definitely no one size fits all when it comes to women, because I mean, they're apart from the gender, they're individuals, and we're all made up differently. And you know, I think a lot of our experiences have to do with, you know, the individuals that we are today and what we expect. But one thing I would say for sure is something that still trips me up today is sometimes no means yes. And I don't mean when it comes to non-consensual acts, but it's like sometimes she can be like, no, I don't want it. Like you go out to eat, right? You order some takeout, and you know, it's from both of your favorite spot, and you say, hey, babe, you know, you want something to eat from here? And she's like, nah, I'm good. And you're like, okay, you sure? And, you know, as men, we take it like, oh yeah, okay, she said she didn't want it, so I'm not going to order it. And then, okay, let's say you go ahead and place that order for that takeout, and you don't include her order in there. Guess what? She's gonna look at you like, hey, you know, why didn't you order the food as well for me? Like, where's my food? And now you're sharing your plate. You know what I mean? So it's a very simplified example, but yeah, like it goes back to the listening part, which is more than just having an open ear. It's also paying attention to the nonverbal as well. And I think with majority of the women, if you want a healthy relationship, it's about making her feel included and involved as much as possible. And I think as a man, we prioritize, hey, we want to make sure we have everything set. We want to have the proper foundation. But, you know, a lot of the times it's like you can build a relationship as well as that foundation, or even possibly do it together. And from my experiences, I mean, I apply to all of them, but I think for most, they want that idea of as men want to feel validated, they want to feel like they're like the anchor of their relationship. They want to feel strong. They want to feel present. I feel women want to feel involved. They want to be a part of your plans. They want to be, you know, they want to be considered. They want to be thought of. And it's the simple fact that you're thinking of her, I think will take your relationship to the next level. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. You know what I mean? Even if that means you send a little I love you text during your day, they want to be appreciated and considered. And so sometimes they'll say no, but they really just want to see, hey, what steps is he willing to take? And even a woman told me this. She was like, hey, you know, sometimes you got to fight for your girl and stuff like that. You know, she may push you back, but she just wants to see what steps are you going to take to, you know, kind of, I don't know, I think it's probably that Disney movie stuff. Like they just want to see what you're willing to do to win them in a way. You know what I mean? And I feel like that could be a little trippy, but it's just something that you got to pay attention to. And it's something that's going to throw every man off, I think, in this relationship.
So before we, yeah, I don't subscribe to that, man.
It happens though.
No, but I'm not saying it don't happen. First of all, one, as I did emphasize, every individual is the individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to know your individual, but then you also got to know yourself and know what you can handle, what you can't handle. But it makes it really hard for me. Like, I feel like those are mind games. It makes it really hard to properly support you if you don't explicitly know what you want and you don't know how to articulate what you want and when you want it. You know, understandably, I think it's important to have some non-verbal cues between partners, and that's how you really kind of get to know each other, because you can kind of look from across the room and then you kind of know what that person is thinking, but not to the point on when it's trivial things and it's just I feel like the whole purpose of that is to just either one, kind of test their partner, or two, to kind of add some kind of wrinkle where a wrinkle doesn't need to be. So personally, it's funny because I used to be really big on like kind of catering to those type of things, and I still, I still do some of that, But I think one thing that me and my partners always kind of talk about is like, it's okay to say what you really want, and if you don't want something, it's okay to not want that either, But and it doesn't mean you have to be decisive in every single moment. You can change your mind. I think maybe that's part of it too. Maybe there's a sense of indecisiveness, and I don't want to sound indecisive, or I'm trying to psychoanalyze something, right, like live on air. But I think that I think that the main premise is, teaching, just like you're trying to challenge your partner as much as they should be trying to challenge you. And if they have certain things that they can do better, or communication that they can improve on, I think it's important that we kind of push them to that. Like, hey, you said you ain't, so you don't gotta be a jerk about it and be like, okay, nah, you said you ain't want a burger, so I ain't gonna give you no damn piece of my burger. You don't gotta do that. You know what I mean? You could give them a piece of your burger, but you could say, but real next time, like, I really need you to speak on what you really want, because we could have been getting you what you want. You could have had your own burger. We could have been all set. You could have been a full stomach. We could have been on our way to do something else, but we wasting time focusing on this little mind game that we playing right now.
Nah, you know what she wants? She wants a piece of your burger. That's what she wants.
Yeah.
That's what she wants.
You just gotta,
She wants to share your burger. That's what she wants.
Yeah, you just gotta learn. You gotta learn your partner, and you gotta learn that it only has to happen one time, and you should just know for next time. All right, I'm just gonna order extra stuff. Like, I'm not gonna play this game. I saw a photo of like a restaurant that had a menu item that said my girlfriend doesn't want anything, and it's like a handful of French fries, a couple chicken tenders, and something else. It was like actually a menu item that I thought was pretty smart.
That's
like,
funny.
That's
she's not having anything. Yeah, so I thought that was like a cool thing. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, if you know that she's not gonna, for whatever reason, then you just need to order an extra burger or something. I don't know. Like,
well, at least my girl now, she just basically says like, I'm not gonna order anything, but I'm just gonna have some whatever you have, straight up. So now at least cool. I know how to estimate. Okay, I need to account for the fact that she's gonna eat some of my food, so I gotta get a little bit more because I feel like now you got a burger, now they eating part of your food. Now you're not full.
Yeah,
they not full. I mean, nobody happy, everybody miserable. We ordering more food.
Yeah. You can't be, people who are listening, I won't even say this for only women, but don't be eating your partners. Don't be asking for a bite of somebody's burger, man. Like sometimes,
why not?
I don't mind sharing
why
my
not?
food.
Come
though.
on, man.
I don't mind sharing my food.
I don't know. So
wait,
sometimes if
Dre
if
don't
I'm
like
hungry,
that.
man.
Dre is
Sometimes if I'm
not
hungry, I'm
reaching
like,
his plate.
I ordered my burger. That's what I ordered. I ordered me to eat a whole burger. I want to eat the whole burger. Right?
Don't reach in my plate.
No,
I'm like, come on, don't ask for a bite.
maybe because I'm the guy that likes to pick off people's plate. So,
Yeah.
but to your point, because I do agree, because I think if you go to any like relationship, therapist or anything, they will, like, I think one of the communication skills is really, because you can't really read your partner's mind. So, and to avoid some of the conflict or like issue that comes with communication is really just being more vocal about what you want. And I think it's really important that, I understand there are scenarios where your partners maybe want you to go above and beyond, maybe think of her and buy maybe one extra burger. I get that. But like from a general, mindset though, I can't read your mind. You have to tell me what you want. regardless of what the situation is, even as little as I should get you a burger, so even though I know we're joking about it, but I think it's really important that we kind of, be more intentional about just kind of speaking our mind with our partners.
I'm glad I was able to open that one. I'm like, I know I'm not the only person going through this. I know for a fact. But like, I guess my point is just basically, I think it's just the act of considering, like the fact that you're willing to share something of your last with that person. To them, it's like, oh, he really loves me. He's willing to give me something, even if we don't have a lot. Like, how many of you guys give your lady the last bite? Do you guys do that? Like, it's a rule that I do. If we're sharing something, even if it's an uneven share, if it's down to the last bite, I let her have it.
It's so funny because I do that and I never actually thought about it like that. I never actually thought about it like I'm intentionally trying to just make sure she has the last bite. I don't know. Maybe if I feel like she's enjoying a particular item, like maybe wings, whatever, we go to Thai food, whatever. If she's enjoying it, I'd rather her have it. If it's have an uneven split of it, because me, I can eat whatever. I'm not really picky. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that's interesting. I never actually thought about it in that. Like so I guess I subconsciously do that.
Yeah, like to your point, because I mean I do it, but I think I do it in a way where, to be fair, though, my wife does it for me, I think, more than I do for her. But I think we do it for each other, and so it depends. If it's wings, I think most of the time we try to split things, to the middle. If we have 12 wings,
yeah, cutting the wing in half, bro.
Make sure. I make sure I don't eat more than she is, because I like to be fair in life, bro. Like that's just my view. Like if there's 8 items, I'm gonna make sure I only eat 4. If we make pizza at home and when it cut into 8 pieces, you make sure I eat the max that I eat is 4.
But what if there's 5 though?
What do you mean if there's 5?
There's like nine.
What if there's an uneven number?
How can you cut? No, you can't. That can't happen.
That's what I'm saying. So what do you do with?
Hold on. You've never had school pizza before. They could cut slices into
into squares. I guess.
No. Hold on, friend. If there's 9 wings, how many are you eating?
Well, I mean, that situation, my wife would probably tell me to eat the 5.
Okay.
Yeah, because she doesn't eat as much as I do too, so that also come into play. So she'll probably tell me to eat the 5.
I don't know, girl. It's a flat. You might have to take an L on that one.
or sometimes we just like
lemon pepper. You want me to give up the lemon pepper wings?
I might like take a bite, so and just have her. I mean, I think that's at the end of the day, it's really. I think Dre kind of mentioned that your partner and you kind of know like her, like my wife doesn't. I don't think she ever finished her food actually. So that also is a thing. So for me, I always usually get the extras. So the leftovers. Even if she have leftovers in the fridge, she doesn't like come back to it. So I always end up eating it anyways. So it's like I mean it works. I guess I'm in my family. I'm benefiting from the extras.
You get the scraps. You get extras regardless. You get extra service regardless.
I think it works both ways too. Like, not to say that men have to always be the ones giving more, but in return as well, like vice versa, just acts of consideration. And they don't have to be anything major. Like, you don't have to buy someone a Lamborghini and some Louis Vuitton and some Coach and all that. Like, it could just be small little considerate acts that can really push your relationship, I think, to the next level and kind of keep it healthy. But speaking, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I've always found that those things always like hit way better than like an expensive gift or something like just like emptying the dishwasher or for me, I feel like those things always like hit a lot better for some weird reason. It's like, oh, you did this for me. Oh, it's like sometimes it's like those little things I think sometimes mean more than the bigger grand gestures sometimes.
Dre, I think it comes down to your love language. Because for me, that will hit. For my wife doesn't care about that. She should rather like have me come on and give her a hug and rubbing her like on her back, or give her a back massage or something, But I do agree with you though. But yeah,
if you just came home and or if you was in the house with her for a couple of hours and you just went in the room and hugged her, right? That would mean more to her than like if you bought her a bracelet or maybe for some people, right? But I'm just saying sometimes those little things kind of
Right.
really help out more than the big grand things.
Facts. All right, so let's jump into my scale of things that typically happen in a relationship, and I want you guys to rate who's more likely to commit these acts for either gender, whether it's the men or the women. And let's run into the first one. So when it comes to a relationship and you're at the stage of making or agreeing to compromises or sacrifices on behalf of the relationship that may not be self-gratifying, meaning you may make a compromise that does not benefit you, but could assist in growing the relationship. Who do you feel is more likely today to make that move, men or women? Or you could put on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are men to do so? And then how likely are women to do so, in your opinion, from your experiences?
I hate this question. I hate this question because, I feel like with every relationship being so different, I feel like it's so hard to generalize this because, to Dre's point, we don't have any females on here, but I'd be like, we have any female we put on here, but we doing this for y'all men, so y'all better, it's us, we likely to do this. But then on the same time, I feel like from my perspective, I feel like it'd be more likely for me to do these type of things. So I don't know. I feel like it's hard to sit here and say men or women, but I could just speak for myself.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I'm more likely to do that, but that's just because that's in my nature. I think I've said it 1,000 times. I'm just naturally kind of more of a humanitarian than most people. So, so I tend to be, and actually take that part out, because the reason why I actually get enjoyment in helping other people, I've learned that, which is a good part and actually sometimes a character flaw, but I enjoy giving of myself to help other people. So I guess, you said not self-gratifying, but it is. So, but I say I'm more likely.
Yeah, I would echo that. I'll keep it to myself. I won't speak for all men. So I don't want to get in no trouble. If my wife is listening, don't listen to what I'm about to say. But yeah, I feel like I would be more likely to do it. I think there's probably only I have a little list running in my head of all the things that I would probably not want to compromise on. But I would say probably 9 times out of 10, I would probably have no problem compromising anything for the betterment of our relationship. The couple of things that I'm thinking of in my head, I could justify why why it's okay for me to not. I won't even get into that right now, but yeah, I think I would probably be quicker to do it. And I'll go on a limb and say I would assume most men, depending on what it is, are probably more likely to very quickly do that, because I think it is for some of us, it's kind of part of our DNA, right, to be providers, protectors, or whatever. And if it just means depending on what it is, right, you go on a vacation, you having to go to your in-laws house, right, or something, what I mean? I'm thinking of those type of things, right? You may not want to do it, but it's important to your partner, so you're okay, fine, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to make a big deal about it, right? I'm not going to throw it in her face that I'm doing it, right? But I'm not happy about it, but I'm not going to let her know that I'm, what I mean? That's what I'm thinking of. So I'll be a little bit more controversial than D Black.
In a relationship.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
I agree.
fighting words.
I concur with Dre on that one. I think men are more likely, on a scale of 1 to 5, that I give the men a 5. I think I'll give the women a 3 in that regard, because the same points exactly. Men are kind of entrusted to this role of being the providers, the hard workers, the sacrifices. Not saying that women aren't, but it's more or less so on the weight of men to really, I think, push that relationship to that next level. And for some men, the idea of making that commitment could be that compromise or sacrifice. So in the same sense, I think any compromise or sacrifice you make that's going to achieve common ground is going to benefit the relationship, even though there may not be an upfront reward for you upfront. But at the same time, I think if you're with your partner and you're either gender or working to do things to help improve it, that's a benefit to everyone in the same vein, I believe. Granted that you're both on the same kind of thinking and common ground, of where you want the relationship to go. But I feel like ultimately it'll be more than a lot of cases up to the man to make a little bit more of a sacrifice, depending on the situation. Because I mean, let's be real. There was a time where women weren't into enterprise. There was a time where women weren't making fair wages. So it was really a lot of the weight I feel like was on the man, at least financially, to do what he needed to do to provide for the family. And I think more so men are likely to admit probably the greater sacrifices in that case.
You know
Yeah,
what?
no.
I actually resonate. Oh, sorry, cuz.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, yeah, I definitely agree with what you guys said. I think the way Glenn scaled that is actually what I would do from a societal standpoint. I think men are more likely to do it. But then I kind of, the way you guys also put in your own personal relationship, I think, it's split for me in my household, because I can think, especially for me being in a being born in Nigeria, there's a lot of expectation that's placed on my wife that she's not used to. She's always constantly, bending over to accommodate to some of those cultural expectations, and so for me, I would definitely give her a lot of credit for that. So for at least for me personally, I would say it's fairly split. But from a societal standpoint, I do agree with the way you guys scaled it, Glenn and DeAndre and my cousin.
Yeah, I think that was the only thing I was just going to emphasize, societal expectation, if there is, if in a relationship you come to and, impasse, there is I feel like society expects the man to bend, So from that perspective, I agree. From a social perspective, yeah, that, men should be catering to, the needs of their woman. But, you know, but again, I speak just for myself, I think that, I just, again, I tend to be the type of person that likes to sacrifice. And I think it's just because of the circumstance of our relationship. And even with all my relationships and friendships, everything, like I like to be a person that's giving of myself, because that is how I kind of feel like I'm gaining back. Like I gain I guess happiness and joy off of the sacrifices that I make. So I don't know if I'm even the best example for this.
Nah, it's all good because we got more down the list. Let's get to the next one. When it comes to relationships, achieving common ground on contrasting issues. So basically coming to amends on something that you both may not agree on initially. Which gender you feel is more likely or less likely to do so, and why?
Man, that's a tough one, man.
Yeah, everybody's so damn stubborn now. So I don't know.
That's a tough one, man.
I feel like everybody's so damn stubborn.
I feel like that one may be a 50-50. And I think probably if you like pointed it more to specific categories, I think it would be easier to be like men for certain versus women. But I think kind of in general, I think like I'm just trying to like go through my head of things. And I feel like there would be certain things that my wife would be like, okay, I'm not gonna, like, you got it, right? And I think there's probably things as well where I would be, but I think in general, I think it's probably 50-50 on this one. To be middleman guy.
I second that notion.
It's pretty fair.
Mm.
I know you got some other ones on here. That's not going.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I think, it's hard to really say, because if you cannot achieve a common ground, I feel like you both have to agree on whatever that you compromise on for you for that problem to resolve. So yeah, I think to Dre's point, I would probably say 50-50. But I probably want to pick one, but I just can't, man. I don't know. Yeah,
I feel like it's more likely to be an agree to disagree situation than actually saying, because at the end of the day, you're not actually, because it's so funny, because if one person says, is on the yes side, the other person's on the no side, where is the middle ground? There is no true compromise, because there's no maybe, it's still, so you still have to technically agree to disagree. So the common ground.
no, you do have to find a middle ground, though, for you to, if your spouse says, I want 5, and you said, no, I want 3, you both have to agree, like, okay, fine, let's do 4. Like, that's the common ground. Like, that's the compromise. I mean, like, it's like, okay, we want to go on a trip this year. Like, I can't go. We can't afford it. Let's wait 2 more months. Like, that's like just examples of like real, like, things that actual, like, I'm sure couples talk about. Like, like, you have to compromise and find different angles and how you can resolve that problem. Because if you don't, then you keep fighting and nobody wins. So,
but I don't necessarily, I see, and I think that, okay, in a situation where there is a middle number, okay, let's be real specific in this one. We're talking about, let's think about kids, right? I want 5 kids, somebody else want 1 kid. Then you have a conversation and you end up at 3.
Mhm.
I want kids, I don't want kids. There is no middle ground in that situation.
Fair.
So someone
fair.
is conforming to the other person's ideology,
Right.
you know?
Well, I think the idea of common ground could be taken as, okay, we both agree on this measure, but I mean, y'all could both agree to separate because your ideas don't match. So in a way, you're achieving common ground because you're like, hey, I want kids, you don't. I bet, no hard feelings, but let's separate because this isn't going to work.
Agree to disagree.
That actually reminds me. So we were hanging out with some family friends this weekend. Kind of came from out of town, and the husband is an atheist, and the wife is she's religious. She's a born again. Or at least when they first started dating, she was like super religious, and they have 2 kids, and we were kind of just having a conversation, and we were like, so how do you guys go about this stuff? And they were like, before we even had kids, they compromised, right? Their compromise is that they were going to let their children decide kind of what they wanted to do when it came to that. Like, they weren't going to push one way or another. They had those conversations about like, well, the husband was like, well, my kids aren't going to get baptized or christened or whatever the thing is, because that's too far for me. But then the wife was like, well, if I want to go to church, and the kids want to go with me, you have to be okay with that, right? So they had that. That was like the first. I heard that, and I was like, because on paper you think like, how can the atheist, marry a person who is, religious, right? Because it is kind of like but that was their compromise, which I thought was really kind of interesting. I know that some people struggle with that because I don't think they've had those type of early on conversations to be like, okay, what are we really going to do when it comes to this thing, So I thought it was really cool that they had that. Literally, we were just talking about that yesterday, where they were saying they had the conversation before they had kids. So
that's amazing.
I thought that was helpful
because I know a lot of people that will not compromise on that, and I guess as long as one isn't barring the other from, I guess, exposing or revealing or being themselves, and they should be okay. And I hope that is the case. But that's a testimony right there.
I mean, I know religion is one of those key. I mean, people break up over that. Like, I know I have a friend who married a Muslim, and I knew like they struggle even with their wedding, trying to like decide what that looks like, because they want to honor the like the Christian side and also the Muslim side. So how do you like you can only just imagine what that conversation is like from both like the in-laws and like the parents and the family side. It's just like, but I mean, they make it work, man. So like I feel like their relationship is like a great example of compromising and kind of not overshadowing your spouse or your partner with your belief. And one thing that you should do, when you get in a relationship like that, you should know what you got yourself into, right? And if you're not willing to like compromise at that level, you shouldn't even like be in that relationship in the first place. So
what's funny, and I say this as a joke, but it's because it's honest. I've seen some really bad Muslim women, and the first thing I think is, damn, am I willing to convert? Because I feel like
they are bad.
I've seen some really bad ones, and I'm like, damn.
Yep.
The first thing I think about, am I willing to convert right now?
Why not?
Like Google, I was gonna say, how much do you like pork?
Ask yourself.
If that isn't the first thing if you're a parishioner or a believer, and the first thing that runs through your mind, then that's always anyways. Okay, next one. Announce and address issues impacting the relationship. And I'll go first on this one. Me personally, I'm a person that likes to resolve things right away. And I've experienced with women that it also depends. Like if I know I messed up, I'll probably try to like delay it as long as I possibly can. I'm not going to keep it 100. Not that I'll avoid it, but I'll just, try to do nice things to kind of minimize the blow. You know what I mean? But if I know I messed up, it's like,
Baby, come here. Let me rub on your back.
I know. I ordered 9 wings. You want the 5th one? You know what I mean?
Give her 5 wings off the rib. Give her 6 wings off the rib.
Right? Exactly. Just take the whole thing.
Take all the wings, girl.
But I mean, becoming a man, you'll learn that it's best to just try to address things if you can. I feel like relationships is going to vary, but me personally, I try to tackle things as quickly as possible. And I try to explain to my partner that, hey, the sooner we can address it, the better. I think ultimately, as long as it's productive, because you can address things right away and it's not productive at all. It's a ton of mudslinging right off the bat. And it's a ton of, I didn't do this, you did this, and finger pointing. Like, I think learning how to resolve conflict is the first thing, and learning how to do it your way. And that could come in many different forms, but I think essentially learning how to resolve conflict with your partner is essential. And I think once that's mastered, it could also be an even split in this case to where either person is willing to take that step and be more likely. But I know me personally, I would say that I'll probably be like a 3 or a 4 in that regard. And I would say like my partner personally would be also like a 3 or 4. So like it all really depends on the offense and who did it first, who done it.
I can't even take credit on this one. I'm the avoider. I like to
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to, because when the issue's already there, like what's the point of talking is going to get more, we're just going to get into more fight, into more argument. Like I'm already past it. Why? So I would.
He said, why? Why are we talking about
Dangerous,
this?
Man.
You know I messed up. So.
I'm not saying, because I say I'm like that doesn't mean I'm not trying to change. I'm working at it. So obviously with this rating I'm 100% giving this to my wife. And I think women are actually more likely to do this. So this would be my vote from a societal standpoint. I think women are more likely because they are more emotional. They are more in touch with their feelings. And men we always want to I don't have no feelings. I don't cry, blah, blah, blah. So yes, I would definitely give this to our wonderful women in our lives, that they are definitely more likely to bring up the issues and talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm tossing this one to women. I think from my personal life experiences, the men around me in my lives, kind of letting things kind of fall apart before you then try to address it. Like, wait till the last minute to try to get things right. It's like, dog, you waited too late, man. Like she's gone. She's not coming back. So yeah, I think I'm definitely giving this one to women. I think I definitely think this is an area of growth for men to kind of try to deal with the issue before it's like if we're kind of relating this to like a sickness, right? Like, let's not wait until we have gangrene all the way up to our knee, right, before we go to the doctor, right? Like let's just go when it's like only on the toe, right? Like let's try to like deal with these problems like sooner. Before they become like bigger issues. And that's normally what I found in relationships. Like the longer you wait, it's like, and then starts to affect the other stuff that was like good in your relationship starts to become bad, right? Because it just starts to get, it's like a virus, potentially. So yeah, we'll get this to women. We can definitely learn from how you go about handling things instead of avoiding.
See me, I must be different because I've been through therapy. Okay, I already know. I'm not waiting to talk about nothing. I mean, I need to get it off my chest. I need to let you know. But I think I will say that I know my partner and I know how she processes things, and I know how best to have conversations. It doesn't always have to be right on the spot. Sometimes right at that moment is not the best time because there's other things going on. And knowing that, okay, maybe later in the evening or at least announcing and say like, hey, we got to talk about this thing. I know we can't talk about it right now, but we can talk about it at some point. But for me, I like to address stuff. I like to here's the situation. here's how I feel about it. Here's what I'm thinking that we need to do about it. Or sometimes, here's what I think you need to do about it, because you need to fix the problem. Yeah. I like to, get that stuff out, clear it out, because I'm the type of person that I'll continue to think about it and think about it and think about it and think about it until like I either get it off my chest or until I have a solution presented to me. So,
Yo,
but I do
hey.
think that men actually, men systematically across the board, we like, I don't know, it's like we're brought up to not talk about emotions and talk about problems. We're taught to just kind of take everything and keep it all inward because we're stoic and we can't be broken. And so I do think that society puts an emphasis on men. It is always weird because it almost like it encourages us not to really address our problems or address relationship problems, because especially if it's something that we perceive as a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's going to be a larger issue with men, because I do feel like women, it's okay, it's socially okay. They're taught to do so. They're taught to express themselves, even if they choose not to. They know that the avenue is there. Versus men, we're not always sure if that avenue is there. We're not sure if our partner is going to be receptive to it. We're kind of always worrying about how society will perceive us for talking about certain things. So I feel like the biggest issue or the biggest problem there, or outlier, would be men.
Yeah, I just want to give one. I mean, you mentioned something. Shout out to therapy. I mean, I definitely, so to that point, yes, I know that's one lesson. You always gotta talk through stuff. That's why I said I'm a work in progress, process or whatever. I'm working. Yeah, I'm working at it, man. But I do agree. I think you have to be willing to have those conversations, because at the end of the day, is you can't really, we were talking about compromising, who like kind of brings up all of those conversations. You can't come to a common ground without having those tough conversations. So yeah.
I think it's the irony in it all is that men aren't really taught to kind of speak on their emotions, but yet one of the badges of being a man is being able to admit when you fucked up. And it's like, this is the irony that those two things go, like they go hand in hand. And it's kind of just like, I shouldn't be able to get in touch with how I feel, but yet I should be able to upfront is admit my faults. And that's going to get into our next one about, and probably our last one on this matter before we jump into the social media impact real quickly. Completely forgiving their partner's faults or wrongdoings. I'll start off with Dre on this one because I know he's hungry for this one.
Oh man, if we extend this to cheating, I feel like women 100% are very quick, or not, I don't want to say quick, but are more likely to completely forgive kind of their partner's faults or wrongdoings. This is one of those areas where I will definitely say, as a man, I still have room to grow. We've had these type of joking conversations with my wife or whatever, or even I've seen these play out with like my friends in relationships, right? Who've cheated on their girlfriends, their spouses, got caught, and their partner took them back. And I immediately said, like, oh, what would happen if she cheated on you? No, we would have broke up. Like, I'm like, I can't trust her, whatever. So like, this is one of those things where immediately I feel like, women are definitely, I feel like from all the examples I've seen in my life are definitely a lot quicker to kind of completely forgive wrongs doing, anything that's, especially like the big things, like, right, when you're thinking about like cheating or being kind of unfaithful or, whatever, I feel like I've seen way more women kind of take their partner back and kind of forgive them and kind of stay in a relationship than I've seen, men do those, men do that.
Facts. And I agree. I'll give the badge to women on this one for sure, because I feel like men, if we're using the example of cheating or infidelity, men will hold that grudge for a long time, because I feel like we take it as, oh, she cheated on me, like on me.
That's a good point.
Like this.
All right, that's a good point.
I cheated too, but what's wrong with that, man?
Exactly. It's a complete double standard when it comes to the game, and men, they will hold that. They'll say they're okay. You all seen The Best Man, and they will say they are okay, and that joke will come back up again. It'll like that fire. It will just click again. Like, oh, why would you remind me about this? You know what I mean? And I feel like men in particular, using cheating as an example, but altogether, I feel like because we have a problem with like addressing and bringing things up, sometimes I feel like we are more likely to hold on to things, probably use it as ammunition. And that can happen in a very unhealthy relationship as well. When you get to the point where every person's holding on to something to say, hey, I told you so, or I got you. And that's one thing, if it's happening in a relationship, modern day man or woman or whatever, that's one thing you definitely want to resolve or get over, because nothing good is going to come from that.
Facts. No, I definitely echo what you guys have said. Yeah, women definitely more likely to forgive us, man. You know, man, we too prideful. You know, the funny thing is, man, we try to act like we're nothing, like we don't care about stuff, but we are so sensitive, man. Just we are so sensitive. We've been so prideful to like to admit it, but like we be hurting inside like so bad, like man, yeah. I wonder what she's doing right now. Is she thinking about me? You know, like
Probably out there cheating again. Blowing up her phone. What you doing over there?
Where you at? Where you at? What's your, yeah, babe? I can see you in my location.
Like, send me your
But-
location right now.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I definitely, yeah, that's all I got, man.
Yeah, so I don't know. Well, I'll say, okay, one, I agree on the premise that as men are extremely, I think by nature we're kind of territorial. So that's one thing that I actually didn't think about, that we see cheating slightly different as a more of like an almost a direct attack on, who we are. Like, how dare you do that to me, of all people, like to me, you know what I mean? So I get that premise. But in a sense of like when we talk about, harboring negative feelings like for longer, just because you come back to the relationship doesn't mean you've forgotten or you've moved on or you're not thinking about that. I'm trying to find the name of this Kendrick Lamar song where they were talking about like the abusive relationships, the cycles of abusive relationship. I was actually talking to Selassie about this, and it's so crazy because even if you listen to that song, it felt like a stereotypical kind of situation, like a domestic violence situation. And she was talking about like the hoes that he slept with, and all that stuff will come up. So even though, yeah, maybe she came back, but that doesn't mean that she forgot, and it doesn't mean that she's necessarily forgiven. She will remind you of those things. And then I guess my question too is like, if a man gets cheated on, is he really going to leave? You know what I mean? At least from the examples that I've known, the man doesn't leave. Like, yeah, he may harbor some negative emotions or something like that, but he doesn't leave either. Especially if he's emotionally invested, really seriously. I'm not talking about, and I think that's where we just kind of need to make a line, because we're not talking about the dude that thank you for finding it. Yeah, We Cry Together. That's the name of the song. But I'm not talking about like where this dude trying to be a player in the streets and keep his bench warm, and she trying to, I'm talking about people that are 100% invested in each other. They both of them will come back. They may try to make it work. So that doesn't mean that, again, that they've completely forgiven. That doesn't mean that they've completely moved on. There may be certain situations where it's like, yo, this man usually gets home at 7, it's 8 o'clock. Where is he at? Or, she says she's going to chill with her sisters, and it's been, 30 minutes and I haven't seen a text from her. Like those thoughts will still come back. So I still think that even though you agree to come back together, both parties, especially it's more about level of commitment. But if you're really committed, you still have those thoughts in the back of your head. Like they never leave you.
When I hear that term, We Cry Together, I'll instantly think about the OJ's, the old song where, I know we always say how men are being stoic, but sometimes it can be healthy to actually have an emotional moment. I think it is healthy. Not sometimes. I think it would be healthy to have an emotional moment with your partner where you're just completely transparent and just really just take down those defenses and really look at, okay, what are we trying to do here and how can we achieve it? And to show that bit of emotion, there's really nothing wrong with that at all. But if you're in a toxic situation to where it's going to be used against you, that is definitely an issue. Definitely. I think when we're going to talk about now the impact of social media real quickly, I think that's a part of the problem as well. We take a look at influencers such as Kevin Samuels, Fresh and Fit, Derek Jackson. It's just like, what's your guys' take on it? Because I know a lot with the influencers, there's also the terminology like modern day women, simping, betas, what's the other one? Red pill, high value, like
tables. We always
bringing,
talking about
yeah,
tables.
the table bringers. I am the table. Like, if you look at today's scene, like, do you think the influencers are the problem, or are they simply just speaking on things that have already been happening and taking place?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I can go quickly. I think that for one, I view all of those people, the way I've viewed it is those people are strictly entertainment, and that's how I kind of frame it in my mind. I don't think anyone should be getting relationship advice from those people specifically. I just think that, maybe I'm just like super skeptical, but I just know how the internet works, right? How YouTube works and those things. Those people get paid based off of how people view and share and all that stuff. And I think the good ones, they know that that's what happens, right? They know that if I say this one thing, even if I don't 100% agree with it, people are gonna, share it and like it or whatever. My views are gonna go up. I'm gonna get more subscribers. I'm gonna make more money out of this. I mean, I feel like I've heard interviews from some of those people where literally they were saying like, look, this isn't 100% me. Like, yeah, I'm adding a little extra salt on, whatever I'm thinking because I know that this is how I'm gonna make more money or whatever. So I just look at those people as purely entertainment. I try to not get too excited, not to get too excited or angry one way or another, just because in my head, I'm just looking at this. This is their job. This is how they're making money. I'm not taking any relationship advice from those people. I think that, you see some clips and you're like, oh man, this person's actually good. And then you see this other clip and you're like, yo, this person's a terrible person. Before I found out about before I know Fresh and Fit kind of recently went in, or not recently, but whatever, they had a bunch of really negative moments or whatever. But before that, I only heard about, I don't want to say the good, but I've only heard clips where they were kind of saying things like, okay, I guess I can understand why they had that thought or that idea. But then other ones, I'm just like, you can't be talking about women like that online. You know what I mean? So I just look at it, these people are all entertainers. And I think that's how we have to view them. They're comedians, they're, people who are just there to make money. I don't think that they're making anything worse, at least from my standpoint, but maybe there are people who are believing these people and are respitting, what they're saying and applying that to their lives. But from my standpoint, I don't think they're making anything worse. I haven't heard anything new from those people.
No, I agree, man. No, I think a lot of them actually play a character, because I think I've actually heard in some interviews where people, to your point, Dre, they know what their what their followers is looking for, and they try to play into that. Just like paparazzi, they even some of these magazines and stuff, they just put stories out there for us to consume. But even though more than 50% of those information out there is not true, they just but the people are being intense, are getting the money, because most of the time they just want the views and want the click, so they still making the money that they want because that's what they care about. So as far as how true the information is, I think that's really is secondary to, at least to those people. But to answer your question, I think relationship is just hard, bro. Relationship is harder nowadays because we have social media, we have movies. It has portrayed relationship in this light where people are not willing to put in the work. When they get into a relationship, they realize how hard it is, and they're not willing to put in, go through the growing pains and really get to the other side of it. So a lot of times people just quit before they even get started. So I think really social media, you see a lot of this happy couple online. They were like, oh my God, they look so perfect. Like they're always going on trips. So like they're always doing this, they're always doing that. But you don't really know, what the truth of their relationship is. My I think I've said this before, but my pastor always jokes about this. He says, people say people only post Friday night date nights, but they don't post Friday night fights. Which I think is funny because it's so true. Because
Facts.
people they don't post their disagreement or issues online. At least more like logical people don't. I'm sure some people out there put it on social media, but from but most of us usually post when we travel or we hanging out with our wives or with our friends. We post stuff on social media, and it kind of portrays this image for other people, and sometimes it could lead to even jealousy or even fight within other families because they look at those couples and be like, oh, look what they're doing. Why can't we do that? Why can't we travel more? All of this stuff like that. And in reality, you have to kind of just be content and kind of just work on your relationship. So yeah, I said all that just to bring it back to like how hard relationship is, period. And people are not willing to put in the work to make it work. So that's what I think it is, not to the influencers or dating coaches or whatever out there.
Yeah, so for me, I think that these influencers, I would say, I would say some of them probably come into the industry or start what they're doing with an intention of trying to kind of add some form of awareness to something, or like awareness to a perspective. For instance, like maybe they're speaking to how men perceive themselves, and the disconnect on how women perceive men or how men perceive women, and they realize, I guess it evolves from there to be like, as Dre was saying, it's about clicks. It's about, how many followers and stuff like that. And the truth of the matter is, maybe we're part of the problem because we click on what is polarizing. Like, oh my gosh, he called her a what? He said that she's for the streets. He said that she's this, and he said that homeboy is never gonna ever find a woman. Like, those are the things that we click on, even to, I'm about to rant a little bit, even to the point where we look at news. We talk about news. There's no positive news. Oh, this dog had 12 puppies, and that's fantastic. We don't want to hear about that. We want to hear about the negative, controversial, polarizing topics. That's all we care about. So if we're sitting here and saying that, the influencers are, ultimately the problem, or attributing to the problem, we're the ones that are feeding them what we want. But every time we click on it and we say, please, yeah, give me that clip of you dissing that chick. Give me that clip of you, demoralizing that guy. Give me that clip of you saying how men should be, alpha, or barking and doing all this extraness, and women should be over here playing mind games with men, because I've seen that's now taking trend, where like, oh, I gotta what is it, like, I'm collecting the bag. I don't know all the terms, but collecting the bag on these dudes because I got a dude that's paying me out and flew me out, but I ain't giving it to him. Like, those are the things that we are actually looking for. So if we want to sit here and say that, the influencers are the problem, no, we are the problem. They are the amplifiers to what we ultimately, I guess, the negative in us. So we need to ultimately change our perspective on what we're looking for. Because if you really want a relationship that works, you need to be looking at things from a optimistic perspective, and not a, how much better are you than the person you're with? How much better or lesser like, oh, I should be able to date a millionaire, or I should be able to find a chick who's this tall with her boobs this big, but like, those are the qualifiers that we're using, when those are not the things that truly add value to you. You know what I mean? So don't blame the influencers, blame yourself.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
say that. Yeah,
I was gonna say, agree 100%, but I can't help myself but share this stuff when I see it, right? So if I see one of these videos, like
Facts.
I know I'm part of the problem because I'm gonna drop it in the group chat if it's some
Mm.
ridiculous, video, and I know it's like,
Mm.
definitely contributing to the problem. But it's something I want to get better at, but it's hard to not want to share, these ridiculous clips and definitely all kind of added fuel to those fires.
World star.
Hey, it's so funny.
Facts.
Like it's so funny when you see anything happening and you see people yelling "World Star" because they like it just kind of shows where we are as a society.
Mhm.
People are so funny, man.
Yeah. I mean, just speaking on the impact of influencers, I mean, I feel like a lot of it today is also like the news. You may not always like what you see, but it's good to be aware. And
Mhm.
I think the internet gives this false sense of just abundance. Like a click is ambiguous, right? A person could have clicked on the video not because they like it. Maybe they just want to see what's going on and be aware, but you can't really discern, okay, this click was a person that enjoyed the video, or this click was a person that, didn't enjoy the video, especially when everything's in your feed nowadays. Sometimes you click on one thing, next thing you know, there's a whole ton of fresh and fit in your feed, and you're like, all right, what's going on? You know what I
I'm
mean?
glad you use Fresh and Fit specifically.
Just as an example, because I clicked on one K-Sam video. Now there's like tons of it on my feed, but I click on something positive and I barely see it in my feed. So it's
That's
kind of
true.
like,
Mm.
I kind of wonder sometimes what happens, you know what I mean? But
What's that algorithm like?
what
Yeah, I
is
was
that
gonna say
algorithm about?
it's all by design. I think some of my jobs, I've been privy to kind of how marketing works, and that's how it, especially Facebook has been really vocal about making it clear, right? We know certain words or certain things. If somebody's angry about something or whatever, we're going to show this in your feed over something. To D Black's point, a dog had 12 puppies. No, we're going to show you the really dangerous, or the really divisive topic, because that's what we're saying we think you want to see over the good stuff, right? So it is all by design, sadly. All these companies make money off of the longer you spend on the app, right? The more of those videos you ultimately watch. Like it's
all about money.
it's all about money.
It comes out to money.
And I feel like as well, it's like when it comes to my relationship, like I do feel like there are actual counselors that drop good advice. Like lately I've been seeing TikToks from divorce attorneys that have been talking about things and things we should know about. So that's not to get it twisted. There is good information out there depending on the source, and being able to kind of disseminate, okay, who's on it just for views versus who isn't. One of the rules I go by is if you're not a professional, then there's a good chance I'll probably click on your video for the entertainment value, but I'm not going to take any of this information home with me. And it's like, if you're a regular person and I can't actually see your day-to-day, what relationship you're in, how successful were your relationships, then to me, it's kind of like, I don't follow that. Like, I do think it's healthy for couples to have other couples that they vibe with. You know what I mean? And kind of bounce off of each other, especially if you have your brothers that are in healthy relationships that you can talk to. The females, they have their sisters and that they can talk to. I think that's a great way to kind of, like Francis said, relationships are hard, they're work. And I think it's good to have like another relationship that you can vibe with and just kind of just work through the motions of being together. You know what I mean? And hopefully, usually that's not your parents, like someone that's going to be completely unbiased. You know what I mean? Whether that comes by way of professional or someone that you really know and really generally respect and care for, and you guys can be completely honest with one another. And I think that not a lot of people have that. So they turn to these quick and easy TikToks, influencers, and things like that, because let's be real, a part of us likes the racy. We like the controversial. We're human beings. That's why not all movies are like completely positive. There's horror, there's suspense, there's thrills. So it's just like a part of us does like it, and they play to that. And I think it's like in this day and age, I say be careful of what you eat, because it's just like someone's sitting behind that screen, behind that mic, simply to make a coin off of, what they want you to believe, what they're persuading you to believe. But at the same time, it's valid because some people actually do think this way. So it's just like, it's giving you a little bit more insight on what to be aware of and careful of. But I think it's easy to get the assumption that, or presume, all men think like this and all women think like this, when that is not necessarily the case. So you hear like modern day men and women thrown around loosely. It's just like, all right, what does that mean? Like the modern day woman of 10 years ago is completely different from what they're saying right now. And it's just like, it's not like these people didn't exist back then either. It's just that now that we have these platforms and avenues that make it very easy for anyone to say something crazy and post it online. So yeah, definitely. I think there are really good influencers out there. Like I think there was like a therapist by Dr. Nedra that I follow, and she'll have really good personal development and self-help advice that works, and she's like licensed and professional. So to me, that allows me to trust it because she studies this. You know, this is a part of her life. You know, this is a part of her career. This is how she makes her bread. But it's just like, on the other end, you have people that never heard of before, multiple divorces. To me, that's like red flags as to why I may not want to follow you. But
Facts.
it's understandable that there are people that actually think this way. So just be careful out there with what you consume at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like to be fair though, I think actually, which you're making that statement, I think it was Megan Good's
Oh, her
ex-husband,
ex-husband.
the pastor, because I know
Yeah.
he was just on the news recently because he was invited to I think it was a show for like couple
Devin Franklin.
therapy.
Yeah.
Devin Franklin, yeah, he was invited to like a therapy, like a show, I guess, to kind of give feedback to this couples who are struggling to kind of keep staying their relationship. And he just went through a recent divorce from Megan Good, and he kind of talked about how he kind of doubted himself because initially was invited by the show before he got divorced, but now that he's divorced, he questioned if he was good enough because he can't even save his own marriage. How can I go on this show and actually like try to save somebody else's marriage? And he like the article was really dope because he talked about he pretty much had to sit on that with that feeling and realize that he's able to really actually share his recent experience and how like some of the learnings that he kind of learned from his recent situation. He was able to bring that to the show and actually help actual other couples who kind of are going through the same thing he just went through. So it's really, so I mean, I said that because I think 3 to 4 divorces is like a lot, and it's hard for me to like take someone like that very credible. But sometimes your failure in life can be a learning to somebody else. So I think we can always learn from other people, even though they failed in whatever they are preaching as well, because they probably they kind of have some perspective about whatever that situation is based on, because they actually lived through it and they probably can speak to it a little bit more. So yeah, I just don't want us to maybe discount people as well, but I do understand you on that credibility part of it as well.
Yeah, facts. You got to make a good point there. Sometimes another person's struggle is their strength, and a lot of the times we go through these, trials and tribulations. Because I mean, I've had plenty of relationships that did not work. I'm happy to say that I am in one that is working, but at the same time, it took those experiences to kind of reveal those things. Like to your point, what I realized I did and did not want, and so some people may take that leap and get married, and they then realize, hey, this person is not the person I thought they were, or they may have changed over time, or maybe they're subscribing to some of these modern day beliefs, getting caught up in the web. But no, that's a great point that you raised there. Definitely. So let's get into our last question today. We started off the discussion talking about the worst piece of advice we've ever received. So let's talk about the best piece of advice you've ever received on relationships or dating. Can we top it off for the people, put a bow on it, and just tell them what do you think was the best piece of advice you received and that assisted in your relationship today?
I can go first. I'll take a piece of advice my father gave me. This is, I think, more probably for married people, but he basically made it a point, and I've not done a good job about this. I'm saying this here to keep myself accountable, but he basically talked about, especially once you have kids or whatever, to still make a point to still date your wife, right? Even once you're, married and you have kids and things get busy, to still try to make room to go on dates or to go on vacations, or kind of basically it's also important for you to keep your relationship going, because sometimes once you're in a marriage and you have kids, then your relationship becomes about the kid or kids, and you kind of lose some of the the stuff that that maybe you did before, right, when you were dating. So that, I think that's probably been the best piece of advice, is kind of still dating your wife, right? Just because you're married doesn't mean that you don't have to still do the things that you were doing before you were married, right? So that, I think that was probably the biggest thing, the piece of advice that my father gave me kind of before getting married, that I think is really important. Still something I need to get better at.
Yeah, yeah. I think I have a couple. I think one that I think you have to be intentional about like not making assumptions, because I think we fail in that sometimes, and that usually gets us in trouble. So I would say don't stay away from making assumptions, and definitely listen to understand, because I think it all kind of tied together. Because when we truly listen to our partner, with good things usually happens. Um and I think we'll have a better days at home for sure. And one last part, something else I think, because this is I've been, I guess, privy to some friends who've been kind of been dealing with some of this stuff more recently. So I think it's really important for me to share this. This is something that I got from my mom, is and I think I've shared this before too, is do not place your family above your spouse, and do not place your spouse above your family. And I think it's easier said than done. I think that's where, like, you have to be very, it takes a level of knowledge and wisdom to navigate through that, because especially if you are a family oriented couple or person, and navigating that, like balancing your spouse needs, or and also balancing your family needs as well. I think it takes you have to really find a way to navigate through that. So that is something that I think has been really critical in my life, and I know some people around me that struggles with that, and that's something that I always share with them.
Like, no going back, running, telling mom everything that your wife didn't do. The can of
But if
worms
she didn't
right
make
there.
the pounded
Yeah,
yam, the way she
because
made the
yeah,
pounded yam,
because you're gonna get over it. You're gonna get over it. You're gonna forget, but your mom or whoever you told is not going to, right? So that is dangerous.
I heard you don't make pounded yam. I heard you don't make it, bruh. Yo, my piece of, I was like, first thing I would say, definitely make sure you listen to these gentlemen, because they're dropping gems. If you're not paying attention, you need to open up your ears. For me, I would say the one piece of advice that I've gotten would be, I got a couple, but I'll use this one. Don't treat relationships like a game. Understand that if you're going in this, to be intentional, like, my cuz said here, and and you wanted to make it last, and like Dre said, and you're doing things to invest in your relationship. Don't take it like a game. You know what I mean? Take it seriously. It's so interesting how, like, we're taught, you know, um, life skills, but how to date and how to make relationships work is not something that is really something that is fundamentally emphasized. But I would just say, don't take relationships as a game. Take it seriously. Date with intention. Pursue with intention, and and then also exit with intention if it doesn't work out.
Facts. And I think my advice will be the same as the worst piece of advice I received. Do not try to change the person. Like, honestly, and then in the same regard, do not conform to what you think a person wants. And I think that's a part of the problem that a lot of people are experiencing today. You're being told, oh, you need to make six figures, you need to do this, you need to do that. No, I think it's important that you find your purpose in life, what it is that makes you happy, what you plan to do, how you plan to contribute. I think we're all losing focus of that. And just because a young man or young woman does not, or an old man or old woman or anyone does not say yes to you, does not mean that they're modern day or a skank or a Lizzo or a simp. Some people just ain't for you, bro. And it's just like, accept that and move on, and be grateful that you missed that, because in the whole honesty, just because a person does not want to sleep with you because you pay for dinner does not make her a skank. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. Find out what they said, date with intention, find out what it is that you want to do. If you just want to have sex with somebody and pay for the meal, go to Montreal. You know what I mean?
Oh boy.
You know, you'll get
Oh,
your
boy.
services. You know, it'll be like a night at Ruth Chris, and you'll get what you want and call it a day.
And you got to pay for the meal in that situation.
You pay for that meal right there. You pay for whatever you want. But in whole honesty, know what it is that you want, and yeah, date with intention. And more importantly, don't try to change people or conform them or assign these labels in modern day. Nah, really listen to your intentions, your heart, what is that you want, and I'm pretty sure you'll find whatever that is. But don't force these views or opinions on other people and to try to assign these poor labels. Honestly, there's someone for everyone in my whole honest belief, and it's up to you to find that person. But more importantly, find yourself. And I think once you have a better understanding of who you are, what you want to be, how you contribute, finding that person will be a whole lot easier, in my opinion. So get yourself out there, live your best life, live it safely, and live, like we already mentioned, the D-Black eloquently said, live with intention and purpose, y'all. There's a lot to be found out there, and not everything is centering around that high value man or modern day woman or OnlyFans or the table bringers or the city girls. Trust. But anyways, for more content or learn about the podcast, feel free to check us out at Jerk Jollof Collar Pod on Instagram. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. Yes, it is season 6, so we're back. Stay tuned for the outro coming right up to learn additional ways to reach us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, share, follow, and or subscribe. Like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review on your preferred streaming platform of choice. See you all again next week. And once more, we're the podcast that's not going to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Without further ado, be safe. Peace.
Peace out.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.